Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to The Law. This is your legal light. It is your health law. A research by Dennis Law in partnership with Corporate Secretarial and Training Services, CSTS, is making a revelation that the metropolitan, municipal, and district assemblies could be in trouble for as many as 154 of them, representing 59%, may be operating without legitimate and valid bylaws. What are bylaws? Why should you be concerned about them? But what is the implication of this development? That is what we are interrogating. If you have been compelled under these bylaws to pay tax or a certain fine, or you may have been prosecuted under these bylaws, what should be your position if they are found to be illegitimate or not valid? Don't go anywhere. Stay here with us. We bring you the education.
Government Act 2016, Section 182, subsection 4. A bylaw shall not have effect until the bylaw has been A. Posted on the premises of the district assembly concerned and in at least one other public place within the district, and B. Published in a daily newspaper of national circulation or in the Gazette. What are bylaws and why should we be concerned?
Right. And so that was the Law 101, where we try to bring you some section of the law or a constitution or pronouncement judicially, so that if by the end of the program you have not learned anything, you will not forget about that particular one. In respect of what we have just shared with you from the Local Government Act, because that is our focus of discussion this afternoon, we will not invite our guests to shed light like we would always do. Section 182 of the Local Government Act, subsection 4. We will not ask them to shed light now because it forms the integral part of the discussion we're going to have this afternoon. And welcome my guest, Dennis Ejay-Jumo, is Managing Partner, Law Plus. Thank you for making time to join us, sir. Great. Also with Dennis is Kweku Atakra Jumo. Many of you have been asking, are they related? Share coincidence. Kweku Atakra Jumo is also a lawyer, teaches the law, and is consultant at the CSTS, the group that Dennis Law Ghana has partnered with to do this research. Thank you for making time to join us.
Thank you, Samson.
Right. So Dennis Law Ghana is a legal material portal in Ghana, very reliable for lawyers and judges who use it in the country. And they, like I said earlier, together with Corporate Secretarial and Trading Services, CSTS, have undertaken this research and discovered this very, very revealing development. So let's begin first by getting to know, when we say bylaws, what are they?
Bylaws simply refers to local laws, put it that way. That is passed by the local authority to deal with local issues. So it has a geographical restriction to it. And it takes into account the special circumstances of the district or the municipal or metropolitan assembly, and it seeks to govern the people, the inhabitants or people who actually use it. And it may be distinguished from laws that are passed by Parliament or the Constitution. You do know that our Constitution gives hierarchy of laws, the Constitution being number one, enactments passed by Parliament, existing laws, customary law, and others rules and regulations. So it's a form of delegated legislation that Parliament themselves have given to local authorities to pass specific laws that seeks to regulate their area, and most importantly, ensuring that those set of laws do not conflict with that of the national laws that we do have.
Kwaku, it's baffling to some people. They hear bylaws and they are hearing that it is the local assemblies that are passing these laws. And they're asking, how can they bind me with their laws? I have elected MPs to pass laws that bind me. How can local assembly people pass laws to bind me?
It's an actual fact. And so as Dennis said, you'd realize that with the hierarchy of laws created in Article 11, not every law may be passed by Parliament. And especially when that Parliament is at the national level, but it may have certain matters at the local level that really Parliament may not be able to speak to it. So by law, Parliament gives a part of its powers to these local authorities, so that the local authorities will pass the law, which we'll call bylaws, and will have the same force as though it has been passed by Parliament. So its binding effect is just as though the Parliament has passed it.
And that's what Dennis said, delegated legislation. So Parliament has given some of its power, delegated it to the assemblies to pass these laws.
And something just also to bring to light, the concept of local government has been with us since coming to free of the Republic. The PNDC took it to another level of now trying to, and you see that, Professor Ahoy's have been dealing with local government decentralization, among other things, and we sought to pass PNDC Law 207. Now we repealed it, came up with a Local Government Act immediately after it coming into force of the 1992 Constitution, which was repealed by the current Local Act 936. So as we do understand that the structure of our Constitution says that justice emanates from the people. The parliamentarians are there to represent our interests. So
that's right.
The laws actually emanate from the people.
That's right.
So one way or the other, to ensure that as part of our democracy, the people do not feel left out in the passage of laws, why don't we also give these people, through our local governance regulation, the power of these people through the assembly members? It might be sometimes difficult to reach my MP, but at least my assembly member, I live with him. By reason of our structure of our constitution, when you vote for your MP from Issa, from Binduri, by operation of it, he has to come to Accra and stay in Accra to pass laws on your behalf.
Typically, what are some of these bylaws that, so that we bring, clear examples for people to associate with? Typically, what are the basic bylaws that we see around?
Well, you can find some on sanitation. I mean, previously we had people called, we used to call them tankers.
Right.
They come to your home, someone to come and inspect. Most of them were operating under a bylaw.
Right.
You have some on even the movement of cattle.
Right.
You have some on slaughterhouse, where to locate a slaughterhouse.
Great.
Can we have an abattoir in this area? All these are regulated by bylaws.
We heard not too long ago about people being fined for breaching sanitation laws, which were bylaws in their communities.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's interesting. As I said, it's subjective. So one locality bylaw will be different. In places where there are herbalists, they will tell you that herbalists require permission before you can operate.
Okay.
In cases where there are lotto kiosks, where to place a local kiosk is governed by a bylaw. And so anytime issues come up, a typical instance, anytime matters come up relating to, there's flooding in Accra now. We are quick, where's the Minister for Works and Housing? But somebody did not do his work under the bylaw.
Okay.
Because all the bylaws, if all the assemblies were enforcing bylaws, before you can place a building, you need a bylaw. There was a bylaw which did not permit people to convert church buildings to stores. Bylaws were not being implemented in terms of spatial planning and land use. The land may be for you, but the use is determined by the bylaw from the assembly.
So that the zoning policy, either it is a commercial area
or not,
or it's a residential area, or it's a mixed commercial residential.
It's done by the local assembly.
Okay.
It's because we are not enforcing bylaw. That's where our parks that we used when we were young, we used to play on, have been converted to stores.
Right.
So now you live in a community where the bylaws...
I remember that so quickly because I was involved in one case where the place is a residential community by the zoning policy of the assembly. And some people have started commercial activities there. And my client took them to court and he was successful.
Yes. But the sad aspect of it, because we are not paying attention to it, by the time you realize the people influence the zoning policy to be changed.
Right.
And when it does that, then you have been left out.
Yeah.
In time past, people used to publish.
So you have noise in residential areas.
Yes. So yeah, and the reversal too, there were instances where people used to site their stations at outskirts of the town. Now, because we're not enforcing residential bylaws, we have allowed the residents to now move to the filling station. And we, the residents, are now telling the filling station owner to move his filling station away.
So you are getting a picture of how and why you should be concerned about bylaws. Now, so if it is, these are passed by the local assemblies. Let's start with Kweku. How are they scrutinized to avoid arbitrariness, to avoid capriciousness, among other things? Because when Parliament is doing it, at least we know a clear-cut procedure, how laws are made, so that, nobody does something because they want to, as it were, achieve some personal agenda, so to speak. Recently, the Accra regional minister has led a process to some bylaws for cleaning your frontage, among other things. Yes. So how do we ensure that these laws are not arbitrary and so on?
So there are several scrutiny points that the law provides, especially for passing bylaws of these district assemblies.
Okay.
You have the Regional Coordinating Council that maintains an oversight responsibility over these laws. But even before we come to the Regional Coordinating Councils, you realize that the Constitution first and foremost provides that it's a basic law of the land.
Okay.
Any law inconsistent with it is to the extent of that inconsistency void. So first and foremost, if you're going to check whether the law is arbitrary, we can check with the Constitution.
Okay.
If it violates any provision of the Constitution, the courts have the power to strike down that provision. Beyond that, we also have the Act.
The Constitution says, if I'm arrested, detained, or restricted, and police is not granting me bail, they have within 48 hours
to do so.
A district assembly cannot say, in this district, the rule is that it has to be 2 weeks.
It cannot do that because then Article 1.2 come and say that any law found inconsistent with the Constitution will be rendered void.
All right.
And so the courts have the power to declare it void.
Okay.
Also, if there's any provision that violates even the Local Government Act or any statute that has been passed by Parliament, it means that bylaw is going to find its want. And then the RCC has also the power to maintain that oversight responsibility over the bylaws that pass.
Do you want to say something to that?
What I would say is that many a time, what the bylaws that we have studied, the 106 that we have studied so far, are not really arbitrary. They are actually standard bylaws that has been done over time, and most of them relates to sanitation. Apart from sanitation, sometimes on liquor and licensing issues, on entertainment. And the Local Government Act, one of the schedules, have listed the areas in questions that it takes care of.
Okay.
So already there is a guide that assemblies have to follow, and most of their bylaws take account of it.
There's a template.
There is the area template to deal with it. Now, apart from that also, the Minister of Local Government is empowered to pass model bylaws if it thinks that particular issue affects almost all the assembly and cause the assembly, depending on area. For instance, like that's the Minister for Greater Accra has done. Through the model bylaw of Operation Cleaning of Frontage, he has made sure that that particular law applies to Greater Accra region.
The whole of
the region.
Okay.
So the law, there is that opportunity to ensure that these things are taken care of.
Right.
But the most important thing is that it's dangerous for people to keep bylaws in their pocket when some of these bylaws have penal effect.
Okay.
And most of these bylaws, sadly, when it's enforced against the poor. It's enforced against people in lower class in society. It is not enforced against the rich. The people who are building or violating the zoning policy are not the rich. The people who are violating the building permits are not the poor. So you will see that in terms of the application of these bylaws, it's actually applied in such a way that the less in society are the people who are most affected. And that's more reason why...
Like people who are selling in the market, trying to sell at a place that the assembly will say you can sell.
Abaye.
Yes.
Yes.
These are poor people who are trying to, make a living.
But somebody has built a supermarket in a waterway. Meanwhile, and I'm saying that I know for a fact that when the assembly, you are building, anywhere you are building in Accra, for instance, and you start building without a building permit, you'll be shocked that the people will appear and write on your
That's
wall.
right.
No matter where you are building.
That's right.
So it means that the inspectors are around. Only that they have not been empowered enough to do their job. And the reason why most of us must be concerned with it is that for some of us, this is the law that affects my grandmother, my grandfather. These are laws that affect my indigents. And for that matter, if my assembly, sadly, have not passed bylaw, I'm very worried.
Okay, so I was going to ask the question, why should I be concerned about bylaws? Why is it necessary? But you have dealt with quite a bit of that. And maybe I ask this tied to that question, and then we will return to look at the motivation for the research and the implications and the things that the research brings up, and how there can be a resolution to this situation. So, can an assembly operate without bylaws? Yes, Kweku.
So, answer to this question is yes and no. Yes, because it can operate without a bylaw because it already has its legitimacy through an LI that has been issued. But if you look at the functioning of the assembly,
right,
if you look at the nature of their function, they cannot operate without a bylaw. Because, for instance, if you look through the Act, you see provisions on planning, provisions on building, provisions on permits, provisions on rates, taxes, fees, and what have you.
And there's no national law to cover that?
No, there's none.
Okay.
And the law specifically requires that to implement this, you need a bylaw.
Okay.
So to charge a fee or to charge a rate,
right,
or to even ensure that the planning...
the property rates, the market tolls,
all of those.
There's no uniform national law to cater for that?
There is none.
Okay.
There is none. So they're supposed to be charged at the district assembly level, of which the law mandates that should be done by the use of a bylaw. Okay. So then, quite clearly, if they don't have a bylaw, how do they enforce it? So then any form of enforcement they may be doing will be something illegal. Because then under what law are you claiming this toll, or claiming this fee, or claiming this tax?
All right. And they need money to operate.
Yes, and some say it's also about the relativity of income level across the country. The charges that you may implement in Osu cannot be the same in Otafo, cannot be the same from where Mampong, anywhere. It differs. So it may seem simple for you because you're in the Greater Accra, because you're a lawyer. It's very cheap to maybe pay this 100 Ghana, but it's somebody's capital. That's right. So we cannot have. It will be dangerous to have fees and charges. Some fees and charges are of national application, but when it comes to market tolls, it will be, unreasonable to have a standard national toll across the country, because if I'm in Dafiama or I'm in Bolga, and as compared to a store in Osu or East Legon, you can't access to pay the same. So that's why these distinctions are of major importance. Okay. And as I said, most of these bylaws have penal notices. So if you violate it, you can actually be fined. If you can't pay a fine,
that's what you mean by penal notices?
Yes. Yeah, I think there are penal implications of some of these bylaws, and maybe when we go and come back, we can have a look at some of these.
You wanted to make an intervention?
Yeah, but even to add up now, if you check the Act, for instance, yesterday we had flooding across most parts of the country. Now, if you look at the functions of these MMDAs, one of the functions is that they are supposed to provide relief services, just provide services to prevent disasters. All these must be done through the use of a bylaw. Usually, when it happens, And as Dennis said, we'll be looking at the national
NADMO.
government. Yes, looking at NADMO. But these are powers given to the district assemblies that if they had made proper provision, most of these dangers would have been averted.
You see, there's something that is just coming at me because it looks like we have a structure that allow us to operate, efficient local authorities to take charge of our local, areas and manage them well. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're doing that. And I'm talking about in pursuance of proper local government, decentralization. Do you find that through this exercise, more particularly, that we are not implementing the decentralization program properly?
Of course, yes. And it's because we need to take blame as a media houses in Ghana, where we have greater Accra-size, if lack of a better word, of every problem. People, something happens in my hometown, it doesn't get national attention. But once it happens in Accra, we use Accra to shape the mentality of the nation. So in Accra, you have parliament, you have your executive, and things of Accra is, I don't think other regions have also had flooding. They're not giving it the needed attention as if it's Accra. So it clearly reveals that in terms of our mentality, it's about Greater Accra, which shapes the national discourse. If it happens in any other region, I'm sorry, we are not going to take part in those conversations. And if that happens, it then defeats the concept of we trying to decentralize it and rather monopolize it in Accra.
They say everything rises and falls on leadership. So the leaders at those local levels are the ones who must show the way.
Agreed. But one of the worst things that happens to all of us is to be ignorant of the processes. Now, remember that people are in tune with customary law of their town more than with the bylaws of their town. Why is it that if I'm in Gamashi and they announce that there's homowo,
right,
I'm willing to respect it, but I do not know of any bylaw that talks about environmental day around Gamashi area? It's because, as I said, and you are right on it, that the issue of decentralization has not been paid. We do lip service to it. We know the process that DCs and MCs lobby to the extent that the special prosecutor has to write to some of them for publicly saying that I'm coming for my money.
Yeah.
But when it comes to laws, they then decide to take that, I have 50,000 from the assembly. Should I use it to do borehole or should I use it to pass a bylaw? I'll use it to do borehole because at the end of the day, I must account for it. Forgetting that he's a creature of statute, but decide to ignore the statute when it comes to enforce.
Right.
So I think that there has been a lot of lip service, and it's all because bylaws are, so, quote unquote, for MMDAs, district assemblies, it is coming from a village. It's more like a village law. And we are not concerned with village things in this town.
Okay.
It's about what will help those of us who are at a higher position.
Right. So we have done some 25 minutes of the law so far. This is your help law. It is your legal light. And my guest, Dennis Ejay Jumo, or managing partner, Law Plus, and Kweku Atakra Jumo, lawyer and consultant at CSTS. We are dealing with the revelation that 154 MMDAs appear to be operating without or with invalid bylaws. So we are going to the implications of operating with such bylaws. I suppose you've gotten some, ideas now what should happen to these organizations or institutions. I guess this may be the time to take a break and we'll return to continue with the discussion. We'll open the phone lines in due course for you to join with your questions and you get all the answers. You're welcome back. This is The Law. It's your legal light. It is your help law. And my guest, Dennis Ejay Jumo, managing partner, Law Plus, and Kweku Atakra Jumo, lawyer and consultant at CSTS. And as I mentioned to you earlier, Dennis Law Ghana, that is a legal material portal here in Ghana, very reliable one, together with the CSTS, have collaborated to check the status of bylaws in Ghana in this year 2021, and they have done a publication, research publication on what they found. And among what they found was the revealing facts of 154 out of the 260 MMDAs, that is 59% of the various assemblies in Ghana are operating without legitimate and valid bylaws. What is the implication of that? So if we may now get to what motivated this research by Dennis Law. Start with you.
I think those of colleagues who are close to us know that we have been putting databases of laws and judicial decisions of Ghana together. One of the ways that we're doing that, we did some particular work relating to bylaws, trying to look at the content of bylaws, and we were shocked when we write to MMDAs for requesting for their bylaws, and some of them were refusing to give it to us. and we also realized that based on the old law, gazetification was actually one of the sole requirements for determination of whether or not there is a valid bylaw. And requested that information from the government, Ghana Publishers, which is Assembly Press, the solely appointed publishing house to publish Gazette documents. And these were some of the findings that we made. And the more reason why we realize is that in terms of Dennis Law, law is a tool for development.
That's right.
And bylaws are one of the ways, if you look at the impact of bylaws on doing business in every town, it's important that we ought to have had a look at it. It was revealing, it was shocking to us that how do we continue to create district assemblies, and majority, we are quick to spend a lot of money creating them, quick to popular lobby for these positions, and everybody is operating as imagine Ghana without laws. Mm-hmm. That is the impact of some of these things that came up. So our motivation is to highlight some of these things which are beyond our usual MPP and DC matters,
right,
but which affects everybody, especially the people at the down level, including some of us, our family members in certain places, and bring it to the limelight for us to have a conversation on. So these are the motivations of doing, and most importantly, it's also part of the greater agenda of the rule of law of this country.
Great. Surprising to hear from you that even when you are applying to get the bylaws, some people are refusing to give it because they are supposed to make it public so people will know, because publication is the most important thing to making any law. We'll get to that. But what are some of these findings that you had, Kweku?
Yeah, so I mean, our research was quite comprehensive. We went through all 16 regions. We realized that there were 261 MMDAs, and we found that 154 were operating without a bylaw. We found that 106, obviously the subtraction, were operating with a bylaw. Interestingly, I think we found the Ashanti region as being the region with the highest MMDAs without a bylaw. They had 26 of their MMDAs without bylaws. I think the second was the Eastern region. We found 18 MMDAs who did not have bylaws. Then I think the Central region and the Greater Accra region had a tie with about 15 MMDAs without bylaws. Then we had the Upper East region, interestingly. They had 13 MMDAs who did not have bylaws. We also had the OT region with 6. In fact, before that, we had a Volta with 9, Western region with 9, the Upper West region with 8, then the OT region with 6, Northeast region with 5, Northern region with 5, the Bono East Day were with 8, Ahafo region with 3, and the Savannah region with 2, and Western North region with 4 MMDAs who...
You know what surprises me?
Uh-huh.
I'm not expecting to hear that places like Greater Accra and Kumasi will be defaulting because the lawyer population is huge in these areas. I am not surprised to hear that maybe far away, far off somewhere, you know.
Yeah. But that's the interesting bit of it. But if you look at these places like Greater Accra and Ashanti region, remember that AMA used to have a very large man size, and it has been cut down. Kole Klote has been created, Ablekuma West, Ablekuma North. So AMA size keep on shrinking. Okay, same with KMA. So the new ones that have come have to put this in place. But when we decide to do population to assembly ratio, I'm sorry to say that the so-called far away, which some of us are very much aligned with, are the most ignored part of the country, you know. And it also boils to the issue about why don't we have lawyers in each of these district assemblies? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. Why is that? If you look at the Ghana Bar Portal, which we have studied based on the statistics that we do, majority of MMDAs do not have a legal department. Okay, they do not have lawyers, in-house lawyers that do. So sometimes they want to rely on the Attorney General's office.
That's like an unforgivable sin.
Is that? Majority of MMDAs do not have
actually the norm there.
Is it because they can't attract the lawyers?
I think they can attract the lawyers. However, they have not made it a point to have the lawyers in there. Based on always they will raise the issue about funding, that we do not have money. But I have said that in this town, there has never been any funding for anything, but when there is a will, there's a way. So if it's a major priority on the part of the MMDAs to have a lawyer, in-house lawyer to deal with, and the more reason why they have to have an in-house lawyer, that is actually risky on the part of any chief executive officer not to have a lawyer who guides him through the processes, because the issues relating to procurement, the issue relating to public funding are all legal issues which actually increases your criminal risk if you do not have an in-house lawyer to help you go with it. However, sadly, I think one day maybe we have them and we'll ask them those questions. But the more reason why, if you do the land mass and the population ratio, I'm sorry to say that it will be higher in terms of upper west and upper east. But when it comes, remember that Ashanti region has a very large land mass. Before the current population census, Ashanti region has the highest number of population individuals. But it is not a priority, if you ask me, for them to do it. If it's a priority for the politician, they will ensure that it's done.
Let's begin to talk about the implications of these adverse findings, so to speak. Let's begin with Kwekwatakra. What are the potential implications for these invalid bylaws? Because I'm thinking, if they have used these bylaws to collect fees, market tolls, fines, among other things, and perhaps they may have used it to prosecute somebody because like Dennis said earlier, there are penal implications. That is, you commit offenses when you don't obey them, and they take you to court, and you are punished for it. You could go to jail.
Yeah. And it's actually interesting. I spoke with a friend in the central region. He mentioned that he had erected something illegal in his district, and the district assembly called him and said that, okay, we are going to prosecute you for what you have done. He just told them that, okay, they should just bring to him the law to prosecute him under. And that was it. They couldn't respond to him. Now here's the thing about this person is committed something illegal, but by what law are you going to prosecute him? Or his point is that, okay, show me what law I have contravened, and I'll come and take it down.
That's right.
Now the people went back, couldn't find any law to present to him. So then most of them are just backing. If they see you know you're right, there's nothing that can be done to you. So quite clearly, most of the actions that are being undertaken by these MMDAs are illegal, or let me say they are invalid in law. So if they come demanding for a fee, or they come demanding for a fine, or they come demanding for a rate to be paid, and there's no law to that effect, quite clearly means they have no authority. And within our criminal laws, we know under Article 19 that for any offense should be stated in the law, and the punishment also provided for. So if you say that I've littered the community,
yes.
What offense have I committed?
That's a typical bylaw.
Exactly, a typical bylaw.
Yeah.
If you don't have a bylaw today, how do you say that by keeping refuse in front of my house and there's an offense? If it's an offense, what's the punishment? If all those are not provided, we can see a wrong, but we can't
Except
talk about...
that for that example, there is a provision
yes,
in the Criminal
Offence Act. Yes. And in fact, the local government creates an exception for that.
Right.
But just as an example, so whatever offense you claim I would have committed, show to me what's law. So most of these actions by these MMDAs are invalid. And in fact, I think in our research, we found about 27 MMDAs who are operating with a draft bylaw, which means that they had the law, but the law hasn't gone through the full procedure.
To mature, to become law.
To become
so
law.
It's no law.
So it's not law. So we added it to those who do not have laws. And so they have a document there, which you say this, say that. But what's the validity of that document? It's not provided for.
Yes.
They haven't passed through, it hasn't been gazetted, it hasn't passed through the advertisements, nothing. Probably they got somebody who wrote it down for them, they printed it out, and that's what they are operating by. Of which then quite clearly, it can be used. And you see that these, I mean, if the operationalization of these functions were kept in the bylaw, most of these problems, as we've been saying, would have been catered for.
Right.
Issues of sanitation, issues of flood, most of them would have been catered
We are opening
for.
the phone line soon, but Dennis, if you want to tell us more about what the implications will be, and again, you said something that now comes into sharp focus. If there are lawyers around, they would help these assemblies to do these things. But even if they cannot afford the services of an in-house lawyer, they should be able to get a lawyer to help them navigate this, you know, as a job to be done. And
I think so. And it's just, as I said, we have just not paid attention. I don't think we have paid attention to it as a country on some of these issues. There are situations where either we do not know or we do not care. And as I said, if you look at the old Local Government Act, the gazetification has been made that it will not have legal effect. That's the language of the law. So the validity of a law, a bylaw, is based on its publication in the Gazette or newspaper of national circulation. Because when that is done, the presumption of regularity...
Let's show that provision again that we started with on the Law 101, the particular section 182, subsection 4 of the Local Government Act 2016, Act 936. Yes. It says that the
bylaw,
a bylaw shall not have effect until the bylaw has been A, posted on the premises of the district assembly concerned and in at least one other public place within the district. And it continues, published in a daily newspaper of national circulation or in the Gazette. You've been talking gazetification, gazetification. What is that?
It's basically the public notice. So that's a basic that, because remember that the position of the law is that ignorance of the law is no excuse.
That's right.
When we do publish in the Gazette, it's notice to everybody in the country. Now, we're having a conversation. We do know that the old law was only for publish it in the Gazette. Yeah. Then they added a newspaper of national circulation. Now, we do know for a fact that it's more expensive to publish in the newspaper than in the Gazette.
Oh,
because newspapers will charge you per page or half a page or depending on the size. Now, if you look at the number of bylaws, the number of pages that bylaws cover, it will not, if you are published in, let's say, the Daily Graphic, for instance, it will not be less than 10 pages to publish a bylaw of, let's say, Adenta Municipal Assembly. So although I know the intention of the framers was, publishing it in the Gazette was expensive, they have forgotten that now newspapers are owned privately. Even Daily Graphic is not a public newspaper anymore. At first, it used to be a corporation. Now it's a company.
The Ghanaian Times is there, though.
Agreed, but in terms of that, they also need to make. They have to also raise funds. And I'm saying that for those of us who go for substituted service,
I'm not advertising, but
I know
comparatively, the Ghanaian Times is
it's cheaper. Agreed, but still, they will charge you half a page or for a full page to do that. Okay, and I'm saying that if you have to publish in 10 pages, it might be more. Although the idea was that gazetting or government press was expensive, based on the application of it, national circulation is expensive. Now, apart from that, the more reason why some of us as researchers always prefer the government publisher is that it brings certainty. In terms of printing government publisher, it's easy for me to acquire when it's published in a daily. Now, what amounts to a newspaper of national circulation currently? If you probably maybe Times, and can you say Crusading Guide is of national circulation? So that to avoid this issue about whether it's of national circulation
but why
or not.
Can a district assembly claim that it can't afford a publication. First, it says you post a copy on the assembly building itself.
Yes.
And then you look for another area within your locality and post copies there, at least 2 places.
Yes.
Then, in addition to that, in a newspaper of national circulation and the Gazette. Or is it all?
All the Gazette.
All the Gazette, okay.
At least let the entire country know that this is the bylaws of Bongo or Zoko.
So that, like you said, ignorance of the law is not an excuse.
Yes.
So I will know before it is.
And then some of us, those of us who are actually interested in the rule of law, and if you look at how bylaws, local assembly operate, some of us think that we have gotten, because customary law is mostly oratory.
Right.
By the power of technology, some of these bylaws have to be said or recorded in such a way that it can be sent to people to listen to it, among other factors. Otherwise, you may pass a bylaw. My family is in Zoko. You pass a bylaw, you come and do the gazettification in Accra. I do not have notice of it. It's not in my local Frafa language. How do you expect me to understand it?
Yeah, surprisingly, I'm laughing because you are mentioning places I don't ordinarily expect you to know. You know Zoko, and I know that people in that part of the country are watching. Now, the phone lines are open now. You can join us with your questions to the lawyers who are educating us on the implications of invalid bylaws. And 154 MMDAs have been found to be operating with such. My guests are Dennis Ejay-Jumo, Managing Partner, Law Plus, and Kweku Atakra-Jumo, lawyer and consultant at CSTS, the group which together has partnered with Dennis Law. That is the legal material portal in Ghana to do this research, the outcome of which we are sharing with you in this education. Right, so
one thing I also
so you are talking about the things that make the bylaws invalid.
Yes. And what is amazing is that if you look at the composition of a district assembly, the MP for the area is part.
That's right.
Government representatives are part. So that's why we have come to the conclusion that it is not just about lack of money to do it. It's just that we have not paid attention to it. And we just simply, because remember that it is dangerous. Remember that the DC or MC is the chairman for DISEC. He's in charge of security for that place.
DISEC is District Security Council.
Okay, so when it comes to executive power in the district, that person has the executive power. And I'm saying that for those of us who live in Accra, don't really appreciate the power that MMDAs actually have. But if you go to certain places, these are the presidents of these towns, and if they are not
guided, a bylaw has been used to prosecute me, and now your research has found that, you know, it was invalid, what can I do? If it was used to take money from me,
the state should be able to compensate you for unlawful conduct, because remember that when people are kept in jail wrongfully, the state compensates them.
That's right.
If at the end of the day, the state whose mandate, remember that it's a public duty on the part of the DCE to ensure that those things are done. If you have failed in your function, you cannot use a bylaw which is invalid to prosecute me, and that DCE ought to be reprimanded.
Yes. Okay, Maxwell, you are calling us from Garu. Let's hear you first, and then Hassan from Accra. We'll hear you after Maxwell. Hello, Maxwell.
Hello.
Yes, Maxwell, go ahead.
Okay, I want to ask that can the regional coordinating councils approve bylaws for the districts to implement?
Thank you. If you have started with us, you'll get a clue from there. Hassan, let's hear your question.
Yes, thank you so much for the question. I want to find out if did they find out why most of these assemblies couldn't actually, put their bylaws in operation, as earlier on mentioned, but most of them don't have the space to go to. So I want to find what the
Thank you. So who will take Maxwell's question?
It's the Regional Coordinating Council has a role to play. However, we are saying that at the end of the day, my people will say, work doesn't deserve to be paid.
Okay.
The requirement of it is that
but quantum merit.
But the sad aspect of it is that the law says that it has no effect until you gazette it.
All right.
Or until you put it in national circulation. So although the regional coordinating council has a role to play, and they do play a role, it cannot end there.
All right.
They have to come to Ghana Publishing and get it through, because remember that if we show you, and I will give maybe because of time, it has a local government bulletin number and all those details. It will have a date of gazetification and it has an effect in law.
All right. Remember Hassan's question about whether you found out why some of the assemblies were unable to do this rather simple work. Smith, you're calling us from Bekwai, and then we have Mr. Kwashi. You're calling us from Kumasi. Kumasi, one of the biggest defaulters. Yes, Smith, let's hear you.
Yes, Hanson, thank you very much. My question is, the assemblies do prosecute people in the law court.
That's right.
But I understand the revenue, because they don't have the bylaws, the revenue that comes as a charge for defaulters don't come to the assembly. In the bylaw, if a fine is to be attached, but once there is no bylaw and that is not used to prosecute the person, the assembly doesn't get a share of that.
Okay.
Revenue.
All right.
So that aspect should also be.
Okay, so that's a complaint. Thank you for that complaint that you raised. Hassan's question.
Yeah, so for Hassan, he was asking whether I found the reasons
why they are unable to do this.
Yeah, so for some of the district assemblies, they complain on the cost requirement. Some were saying that, look, it's too expensive. I mean, one DC will say that if I come into office and I spend about 50,000 just to make a bylaw and I leave office, what achievement do I have, or have I made?
Really?
Yeah, one told me that. He says that, what achievement have I made? He
needs to get tolls. He needs to get all of that.
But in his mind, he's thinking of the infrastructure. Okay, I'd rather put up a borehole or erect or maybe create a market.
Or just waiting for Accra to bring his portion of district assembly common fund.
Exactly. So in his mind, the cost component, if he does the cost-benefit analysis, he won't channel his effort into going for a bylaw.
Okay.
He'd rather do something that the people in the communities will praise him.
Oh.
Now, also, another factor we realized was capacity. As most of the MMDAs do not have legal personnel to help them. Most of them say that they are understaffed. And there was one interesting factor we realized, that one DC was saying that, if we come up with these bylaws, we are going to use the bylaws to prosecute the people in the town. We're going to use the bylaws to take fees and tolls from the people in the town. I'm going to make myself unpopular, so I'm just not going to have it.
So that's why our districts remain not developed.
Exactly.
Okay, Nana Pia, you're calling us from New Edubiase, and then Victor from Hohoi. First, Nana Pia, let's hear you.
My question is this. Is this assembly bylaw? When it's proved, is it forever and ever or subjected to renewal every year?
Okay, thank you very much. Is there some renewal date? Is there a limit to it? Victor from Hohoi. Hello, Victor.
Hello.
Yeah. Victor, go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, there is a bypass in Hohoi, and the town planning people are, hello?
Go ahead, please.
And they say there is a bypass over there. And we have a land over there. And the people that don't want to give permit to the area people over there, but always they say there is a bypass, and they don't want to show us where the bypass is. The town planning people.
I'm not sure I got him. Did you get him?
No. What he is simply saying that they are refusing to give him a permit because the people are insisting that there's a bypass. And this confusion is normal within the district assembly. It's because people are hiding the zoning or the spatial planning of the assembly. Unless you go to the assembly, you will not know the spatial plan of the assembly.
Okay.
So if they want people not to raise some of these questions, they ought to put the spatial plan. And if you go there, they have it. They will tell you that this place is for, demarcated for church. This place is demarcated for these issues. But because they know if they put it up, people may challenge same, or better still, those who are privileged to have money often cause this spatial use to be changed, because there are certain places which are not made for filling stations or fuel stations. All of a sudden, fuel stations come up because they have changed the spatial use of it.
The questioning from Apia, is there a certain limit, expiry date on bylaws?
No, the law doesn't provide for an expiry or renewal process. It requires you to have your bylaw and to comply with Section 184. So long as it's there, so long as a court has not struck it down or has not been revoked, it will still run in perpetuity.
You can amend it from time to time.
Yes, you can amend it from time to time.
All right. To meet the circumstances of your particular region. There was a guy who had a concern that the fines don't come to the assembly. You know, why is that so?
No, I think I know there is a certain formula that they use. Some go to the judiciary, some go to other places and stuff like that. But what they have not realized is that if you look at the local government now, there are so many opportunities to raise internal funding.
Right.
Even the assembly is entitled to put rates on every individual in the assembly. Mm-hmm. The assembly is entitled to even charges of ground property rate in the assembly. The assembly, in terms of licensing and permits, how much you will pay. Mm. So if before you do any business activity in that assembly, it requires you to go for a permit or a license, even including sometimes having dogs in your house. Mm. Even some of the assemblies will even regulate the number of dogs you can have in your house. Okay. The assemblies will tell you whether or not you can do poultry farming in your house. Mm-hmm. It's because for civility. Remember that if there's chicken, there are certain.
As for keeping a lion is national law.
Amazing. And if the assembly is up and doing, this issue should not have come to a national attention. Okay. Because for you to bring a certain animal within the vicinity or the assembly, definitely the assembly officer, forest officer, or wildlife officer must know of it. Mm. But because the assembly is not working, and as I said, in Greater Accra, we have basically shelved the assembly and we are dealing everything on a national level.
Okay, and when they are taking these property rates and things, is there a way they should be accounting to the people about them?
No, if you look at the local government, there's actually an instance where there has to be an accounting within the assembly. Right. And that's more reason. Local government is actually the only place where people cannot use English language to bully others. Mm-hmm. Because the law says that in terms of the mode of communication at the assembly level, it ought to be done either English or the local language. So at least that is the only place that for some of us who cannot speak the English language can go and sit down, participate in the deliberation, and will not be intimidated by people speaking English.
Okay, so that was a question from somebody, but let me remind you also that you know that we have the Right to Information Act now. So if your district assembly is not, transparent, use the RTI, process, demand information, and information officers have been distributed to some of them so far as I know, and they will answer your questions. If they are building a hospital and it's under them, if they are putting up, these small chip compounds around, and you don't know where the money is properly accounted for, ask the question, you get them. Yes, Kuku wants to say something.
Yeah, I want to add to the transparency bill that under the Local Governance Act, there are copious provisions made for auditing, internal audit and external audit. So there's a requirement for the keeping of the books, it being subjected to their internal auditors. External auditors must be appointed to vet. So then to bring in the sharp focus of the issue of transparency.
Okay. So obviously we have spoken about the resolution. You've spoken about getting lawyers, getting the needed help. In some 15 seconds, what else can you add?
What I will say is that the regional ministers, I don't want to go to the local government minister. I want to go to the regional minister, who is the government nominee within the region, to ensure that all MMDAs within their district assemblies have bylaws for its people. They are always able to find money to do what they want to do politically. Yes. So they should find money to be able to do. And it's also, bylaws is actually a major tool of raising enough funding for the community.
Right. Thank you very much. That's all time will allow us. Thank you, Dennis Ejay Jumo, Managing Partner, Law Plus, and Kweku Atakra Jumo, Lawyer and Consultant at CSTS, for helping us and educating us, enlightening us as members of the various communities and the local assemblies. Thank you so very much indeed. And to Dennis Law, Ghana. I'm Samson Ladia Yanini. This has been The Law. It's your legal light. It's your health law. We'll come your way next week, same time, with another edition.